Welcome to the Work Done Right podcast, where we talk with industry professionals to discuss best practices in construction, manufacturing, and maintenance. I am your host, Wes Edmiston, Director of Product with Cumulus Digital Systems and 15-year construction industry veteran.
Our guest today is Johannes Paefgen. Johannes is the director of the Hilti Venture Office in Boston, which facilitates startup partnerships and investments in construction technology. He is passionate about technology that makes our industry safer, more productive, and more fun. Prior to his current role, Johannes held a VP position for research and development at Hilti's headquarters in Liechtenstein, creating new SaaS and IoT-enabled services to improve contractor productivity. He holds academic degrees from ETH Zurich.
Zurich, yeah.
Zurich.
Or
All right,
in
yeah.
German, you would say Zurich, I think.
Zurich. All right. Yeah. The London School of Economics and St. Gallen Business School. Johannes enjoys cooking, eating, and anything to do with the outdoors, preferably with his two daughters in tow. Johannes, thank you for joining us here today. Welcome to the show.
Sure, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more about your background, how it is that you've gotten into working in construction technology and innovations as you do now?
Sure. I joined Hilti 10 years ago.
Okay.
I did a PhD in IoT without a specific construction context. So I was working on data analytics and more in the insurance domain. And but I saw where Hilti was not far away. It was like an hour away from the place where I was working on that. And when I heard Hilti was working, so this was the very early days for Hilti to look at SaaS as a product category, and so back then there was the idea that we for tools you can also Hilti always was kind of bringing services to augment the tool business, and we had the fleet management out there, which was our leasing program. But Hilti wanted to go further, and there was a need from customers to track the tool park, to get more visibility on maintenance schedules and so on. And so back then Hilti had this new initiative, which was a very small team. It was like 4 or 5 people working on this. And so when I saw this job opportunity, I was very intrigued, and it seemed to be an industry that was in dire need of digitization and kind of embarking on this journey to what manufacturing had been many years before. So I joined the company 10 years ago in that project, which then became On Track. So in these 10 years, I've been working with Hilti in many different roles, around R&D product on the product side of things, in Liechtenstein, which is Hilti's headquarters. And so doing that for 8 years, you see a lot of exciting stuff, but you always have this kind of internal lens, right? And you see technology and innovation from more Hilti's vantage point, which is broad and interesting, but also it's just one of many that are out there, right? And so when I came to know that Hilti has this venture initiative and was out there in the US and Tel Aviv and in other places looking for startups and building these partnerships, I became very interested. And then in 2021, I had the chance to relocate to the US, to Boston, and join the team here. And so leading kind of the East Coast hub for Hilti's venture team. And yeah, it turned out to be a really interesting role. And so I'm every day, getting to know about new solutions, new topics, new innovations out there. Very much enjoy that.
Yeah. There's a lot that's changing in the industry. I mean, honestly, seemingly every week. We're here at this Built World's America Summit, and just some of the technologies that I've seen at like the demo day yesterday, had no idea. And really novel, interesting ideas, great opportunities for improvements in the industry. Like you were saying, once you get exposed to a little bit of the construction industry, you fall in love with it, right? That the people are great. there's so much really interesting, exciting work that's going on, but also you kind of sympathize for them. Like, this is really how you're doing things. So, so, so it's one of those areas where you start seeing a lot of room for opportunity and improvement. One thing I'd like to bring up though is I think a lot of people know Hilti, right? You can go to the store and you can buy Hilti tools, and everybody really knows Hilti as a tool provider. So whenever you hear things like Hilti purchased and acquired FieldWire back in 2021. And I think it's when it was. Yeah, a lot of people might be kind of surprised by that. So could you describe a little bit about what the intent and vision is behind maybe the acquisition of a construction management software and Hilti's portfolio and where you all are kind of taking that in the industry at large?
Sure. Kind of a big question, but I give it a
Yeah,
shot.
yeah, yeah.
And so as I mentioned before, this how Hilti started, offering a SaaS solution called OnTrack, which is very close to what we do on the hardware side, right? So if you sell, a tool park to a customer and you have certain services around the digitizing part of these services is kind of a very obvious step. So, but then once you're in the market with this product in construction, you you learn and you understand that you were just catering to a slice or actually niche of that landscape and of the problems that our customers are facing that could be solved, it could be addressed with digital solutions. And so when I look at, I think the core of our customer base, so trade contractors that execute work on a day-to-day basis, I think we learned quickly that they need a lot more than just a good solution to manage their equipment, right? And so I think Fieldwire, the story of Hilti and Fieldwire goes way back. So actually, when Hilti started the whole journey into construction ventures, Fieldwire was one of the first venture investments we did, and so that kind of formed the relationship, formed an understanding of this emerging opportunity and landscape out there, and so we've been working with Eve and Jarvid for a while until then. In, I think 2021, there was the right timing and the readiness also in Hilti to kind of make this firm a commitment and do the acquisition there. And if you look at Fieldwire, it's a much more comprehensive solution, right, to what an average contractor like is looking at when trying to coordinate tasks and people and project documentation. And so from there we've just taken it forward really. I think so this year we did another acquisition in Europe in the construction ERP space, which is then kind of adding the back office element. And that kind of forms, I mean, I think we're not Procore, we're not Autodesk, and I think we're also not trying to compete with these players. But I think if you look at it from a mid-sized contractor, we have actually a pretty comprehensive suite that is out there, and it continues to grow and evolve. And so now you can ask well, how does that fit to Hilti, right? And what's our right to play in that space? So I think it actually makes a lot of sense if you go a little bit away from just the product technology piece. So if I look at what does it take to be a good partner for construction business to digitize, right? I think you need to have number one, I think, a direct customer relationship, and in terms of you can call it customer success, or you can call it support, or there's many terms, but I think so that's something Hilti has been doing that since the company was founded 8 years ago. We've been a business with a very close collaboration and partnership with our customers, and which sets us apart from many other players in the hardware space. But in software, I think it's almost essential to have that close link and help customers on the journey to transform their businesses and become more productive. I think also the setup, Hilti is a very, very long-term oriented company. We are not driven by quarterly, figures so much. And if you have a long-term perspective and you're thinking, what happens until 2030 and beyond that, I think it's just a very sensible thing to do. I think that a lot of the innovation will be in software, and you will also, I think, see that the hardware and the software come closer together, right? That's what you see in other industries.
Right.
And so we are lucky to have an owner in the Hilti family that has this long-term orientation and investment horizon. And so with our new company strategy that was launched this year, next to the two hardware business that we have, which is tools and the fastening and firestop business, we have a third area that is construction software, and that's where these things fall. So I'm very excited, obviously, about this. And being in the venture team, it opens a completely new playing field for us, and I think we can be an essential part to kind of bring technologies into Hilti and establish partnerships that help us be a good partner for our customer also in the digital journey.
Hey, real quick, this is Wes. I just wanted to let you know that if you have an idea for an episode topic or a great guest suggestion, we would love to hear from you. Just send us an email at workdoneright@cumulusds.com. Now, back to the show.
So it sounds like a lot of this was born just really from this idea of Hilti being a partner for these construction contractors through the projects, right? So it's not just, hey, here are the tools you purchase from me, you drop them in the lab.
Right.
Really, just this whole idea of kind of the services business of Hilti, really strengthen, like you were saying, that relationship with these different contractors, these different construction companies, and just kind of expose the need that the industry had. And it almost seems like Hilti kind of felt like they had an obligation to step in and try to help to move the industry in a way that would help to improve the projects, just because, again, that kind of relationship that y'all had seen and built as a partner through these projects. So I think that's an excellent really mission and vision through the way that Hilti is operating in this space, and what's driving them to get more into the construction software space. One of the things that comes up a lot especially with you all being now more into the tech side of things, but also being a hardware company, is IoT. It's one of those, I guess, buzzwords that will come up oftentimes, and with you being centrally located to be able to see all of these new and emerging technologies that are coming. I was hoping you could kind of tell us a little bit about what IoT is, kind of dissect what that is, and to see how that fits into a bit of the landscape for what it is that you're looking at.
Interesting. Yeah, I think so. IoT, the definition is pretty straightforward, right? But I can give you actually a bit of a background there. So I think the original notion was, right, someone looked at like the internet as it was in, I don't know, the late 90s or whatever, and then you see, okay, what's the potential of the internet, and then you come there's kind of a ceiling with like, what's the population on planet Earth? If every human has a PC, that was how you were thinking back then, right? You could have this and this many participants or entities on the internet, right? And I think that was replaced or kind of extended by the idea that what if all the things that surround us, and for lack of a better term, we use things, right? I mean, it's but it's like cars and lights and like lots of different industry specific objects, and then you obviously come to a much larger number, right? So now instead of, I don't know, 10 billion human internet users, you talk about trillions and trillions of devices and sensors and things, and so that potential economically is huge, right? I mean, and that is a transformation that will probably go through a 100-year cycle and have all kinds of implications, but. So what it really means from a business perspective is it gives you a higher resolution on your business, right? And when you look at other industries that are a bit maybe further down the road with that journey, I mean, automotive comes to mind, or healthcare. You see that it actually, there's this tagline: you can only manage what you can measure, right? So IoT gives you acuity. I've heard someone say it reduces the transaction costs between the physical world and the virtual world. So it gives you a lot more data, essentially, right, on what's going on out there. And that, in turn, if you manage the data the right way, and that's often, I think, in IoT, the critical piece, to collect the right data at the right time. And then you can also manage your business, contractor business, whatever it is, in a much better way. And I think for construction that absolutely holds true. It's a long journey. It's no overnight innovation, right? with or without AI. It can take a long time to make it work. And because it's also something where you talk about kind of the right platforms and underlying technologies, right, that have to be out there for the data to come back. Hilti launched a new cordless platform last year called Neuron, that one part of what it does is it has a connectivity built into it. So through the batteries, record operating data from the tools, and then whenever you charge a battery, the charger uploads that to the cloud, and which is a very, like, looking at power tools, that we think is the best way to solve the problem versus putting a SIM card in every tool,
Right.
which adds a lot of cost, right? So, but now if you look at our tool portfolio, right, that takes the time to adopt that, and that's then only for our customers, the new tools that they buy. So of course we would like it, and we have customers that are so excited that they exchange their entire tool park
Right.
to Neuron. But still, until every job site and every contractor has the installed base to really get all the data, it'll be probably decades, right? If you look at everything that's out there, it starts
Right.
started with telematics, yellow iron,
Right.
10, 20 years back, and now it's trickling down.
Yeah.
So I think the vision there would be, that you have a full resolution of where are all my materials, where's all my equipment, where are all my people, and that allows you to streamline a lot of the things. Just seeing the transparency, intervening, streamlining, making things more efficient, and I think that's the vision. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and that makes sense with uh, the vast array of tools that y'all provide, and with integrating things like Neuron, with also getting into the construction management softwares and everything else in that whole vertical, you're able to really put together a good picture of where you are on a project, to capture that iterative work completion data and also build it into the big picture to actually to move forward and again kind of capture that whole life cycle and be that partner from almost from groundbreak effectively to the point of turnover, with your customers, right?
Right.
So you're actually again in that partnership and builds that whole complete picture. With the positioning that you all have, you have a large presence in Europe, especially, headquartered in Liechtenstein. What is the difference? I'm curious in adoption that you're seeing of new technologies in Europe versus maybe here in America, right? And with you being here in Boston with the Americas group, maybe you're more biased towards seeing what we have here now. But I'd be curious to hear kind of how the differences are between the two sides.
Yes. I mean, there's a reason. Let's start with the facts and then I can maybe add a bit of an opinion to that. But there's a reason why we are here in the US, right? Antonia and myself with this venture team. And this is already there. There's kind of a bias. And I think if I look at least the supply side and the technology, where technology emerges, I think North America has just been in the last 20, 30 years and will also continue to be, I think, for a while to come, the most active venture capital ecosystem, right? And there's still, I mean, I meet a lot of startups from Europe, that are predominantly operating in Europe, but if they go fundraising, they look at the US, and they often have the major investors coming from Silicon Valley or other areas. So I think for me, it's just been like in these 2 years in this role, it's just been impressive to see and get into this US venture ecosystem, see the dynamic that's there, and the mindset that people have, right? I think then if you go specifically in our industry, construction obviously is not now the kind of always the most technology friendly, but on the other hand, you meet a lot of companies here that are very eager to try out new things and that embrace the opportunity and that kind of work very close with startups. And I think that's still more here than in Europe, speaking in general terms. I think you see pockets. I mean, also the colleagues from Vinci are here, and the large French contractor, they have a huge startup program. I think there's a lot of things in UK. I think overall, it's now maybe more my opinion. So number one, Europe is not like is not such a homogeneous market as North America. Right. So I would be very cautious to say Europe is XYZ.
Yeah.
And kind of putting Norway and Italy and, you can argue is Russia and Europe or not, and then UK
right, that's fair.
under one umbrella, right? So that's a big question. I think in Europe, I would say it is a bit more kind of conservative, right? There are things like GDPR, which is a data protection framework that the European Union has put in place that I'm not going to say inhibits innovation, but it kind of frames technology in a certain way that for startups it takes a while, especially if they come from the US, right, to kind of accommodate that. And it's also, there's many languages, there's many national regulations, so it's not such an easy market to penetrate from a startup perspective. And I would also say the companies are maybe a bit more hesitant to work with very young, unproven solutions, at least the ones I've spoken to. But that's, there's no general rule. I would actually say that if you would plot the the technology openness of contractors in Europe and the US, these curves would largely overlap, right? And you can maybe argue that the median or the average is a bit more future oriented in the US versus Europe, but if you actually have to look at individual companies, and you will find extremely forward thinking contractors in Europe. And I've also met companies in the US that are very risk averse and very, very kind of conservative on the technology side.
Yeah. So like you're saying, there's, Europe or we'll say here in North America, it's not a monolith in and of itself. So there's some similarities and some differences in the different regions. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. So like you were saying, though, the venture market is obviously, very, very predominant here in the United States, especially, San Francisco and Boston, areas like that, which are major tech hubs.
That's right.
So what have you been most surprised about, or what is the biggest learning that you've had so far getting into the venture market? Like what? Yeah, obviously it was a big change for you as well, going from the industry that you were working in predominantly before and into getting into the venture side of things. So what have you learned out of that process?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So I think there is a mission there to kind of transport the excitement, the enthusiasm, and just the perception of opportunity that exists in this, group of people that actually are very, it's a very open-minded crowd, very collaborative, and also especially if you look at what we call construction tech, right? It's also very committed people that are really trying to make the industry better, right? It's not, I think, sure, there's a bubble here, or there's kind of there's always some uncertainty, but I think in general it's a very value adding effort that the construction venture community is undertaking. And I think for me, a key learning is that I want to be an ambassador and bring insights and awareness of what is happening and what opportunities are out there to all the companies that Hilti has been traditionally working with, and also the colleagues even within Hilti that are maybe not so exposed, right? Because there is a geographic element to it. If you live in Boston, live in San Francisco, and I don't know, if you're breathing the right air or whatever it is, right? But you kind of get infected with that excitement, and I think Europe can use more of that mindset. Sometimes tends to be a bit government heavy and regulation heavy, and for instance in Germany, I think there's a lot of discussion right now whether in the face of all this uncertainty, do you want to have more government or less government? And you can argue both sides, but I think specifically for construction technology, I believe it will come from startups. It will come from companies like Hilti also that work with startups and bring this technology to a broader audience. Yeah, so I think that is a need for everyone that he can contribute, or he or she can contribute to bring the venture awareness of the venture ecosystem to people that are maybe not in touch with it on a daily basis.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Whenever you're going forward and you're looking for new technologies to potentially invest into or to bring into the fold with the Hilti group, what are you looking for? And maybe what are you also not looking for? As in, what are some of the things that you're frequently seeing from companies that maybe like turn you off to that company? What is it that a company is doing right and wrong, in your opinion?
I think since we are, we are in an industry that it's not, why is construction slow or has long adoption cycle? It's not because the people are lazy, right, or stupid. I think there is just some inherent challenges in the way how construction is done in a building project through all its stages, from planning and execution operation. It's just a very complex
Hmm.
entity. And so I think I prefer solutions or teams or founders that have this in mind. And you cannot come with a like consumer VC or B2B SaaS, kind of standard format and say, okay, I'm going to scale in 2 years. These are my milestones, and I'm going to
Right,
execute. And I'm sure being on this criminalist side, and
right.
I'm sure you see very similar patterns and have made similar experiences. So it's all about being persistent, listening to customers, and over time, drive adoption and grow. And Procore and others have shown that you can have success, but it will take a decade or two
Decades, yeah.
to really get to that scale and be one of the major technology companies in our industry. And yeah, I think there are companies where you feel it's more of a shooting from the hip kind of get a lot of venture money. And
Right.
someone said it yesterday on a panel here, right? So you still, the core thing has to be, whose problem are you solving and who's paying for it, why, and really linking that to the challenges and the workflows that you have in construction versus some kind of blueprint, generic VC kind of,
Right,
yeah.
right. So even for you, whenever you're approaching these potential, technology solutions that are out there, you're really looking, is the team out to solve a problem or is the team
Right.
out to start a company, right? And you're looking for people that are trying to solve problems.
Yeah, that's a good solving problems and teams that can listen.
Mm.
And teams that have a bit of, I think you need to have a certain humbleness if you want to bring innovation to construction. Yeah, I think and then there's also like the Hilti view, right? I think we also look. I mean, we are not, a major aggressive VC player, right? We
Mm.
are a traditional Central European technology company with a very global perspective and a global reach, but a set of values that is all about long-term sustainable value creation, right? And both for our customers and the employees and the company. So I think we also have a specific lens on what we think are partnerships. And I think the guidance has always been from our leadership, if we do one collaboration a year and we do it well, that's better than having like 20 POCs or investments and left and right and just a
Yeah.
flurry of activity. So we try to really also towards the startups position ourselves as a partner that has a deep R&D expertise, right? Especially if hardware is involved, but increasingly also I think on software we have a platform and an ecosystem that's attractive. We have the market reach component that I mentioned earlier, right? We have, and not only in Europe or the US, I think it's 100 or more countries where Hilti has somehow a presence. And so that is something we bring into a startup relationship. And then we have this long-term orientation in the way how we work and invest and think about technology and product cycles. And so I think we look for startups to whom that is also an attractive value proposition
Right.
and that want to work with us with these kind of benefits in mind.
Yeah.
Um,
People that aren't looking for how can we have a big win here real fast. They're looking, for long term how we can scale and grow and help the
yeah,
industry.
and solving the really tough problems, right? So if you look at the things we are doing, I mean, robotics is one of these areas. I think also that, yeah, again, contractor software SaaS B2B space is not going to be like many of these platforms SaaS products that are out there in other industries where you saw within just Uber was mentioned yesterday, where within
Right.
a few years you went from 0 to
A billion.
100
Yeah,
billion
that's
or
right.
whatever,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so that's also in software, it's going to be different. It's things like a lot of things like what you said before, Wes, right? A lot of things where hardware and software have to go in sync. And that also comes with certain dependencies and implications. So there's a lot of complexity, being steady and working through this complexity. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot that people can really hear from that and introspect to think, am I doing these things? And maybe even some of these technology providers, if they're having trouble raising VC money, maybe they should listen to this and think, well, am I actually out here to solve a problem, or am I just trying to make the next Uber? So no, that's great. Johannes, we're running right up here on time, so I'm going to ask a few little last minute rapid fire questions to get to
Okay.
know Johannes Paefgen, the man, not just the professional.
Yes.
First off, what is your idea of a perfect vacation?
Perfect vacation. So I have 2 kids now, so it would definitely involve them, and probably just a lot of leisure time, reading books, doing some hiking or swimming or something like that. Just having a nice place that you feel comfortable.
That
Like a
sounds nice.
vacation. So we've done a vacation rental in Maine this summer, which was
Oh,
just
nice,
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Maine. What is your favorite book?
So I think I've been like one of my favorites since my school days. I think there's a Swiss author called Max Frisch. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
He's I think he's read some. He's been an architect, so he
Okay.
comes from our industry, and he's had some very profound thoughts on personality and kind of. I'm not going to go deep into his philosophy, but it's at the same time very down to earth and very easy to read. So that
Yeah.
if people are not familiar with him, I recommend trying him.
I'll look it up.
Max Frisch,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
Swiss author.
I'm always down for another good book.
Yeah,
What is your favorite quote?
I have many, but one that maybe ties a bit to our discussion. There is a quote by one of the founders of the big technology companies here in the US. If you digitize a shitty process, you have a shitty digital process. And I think that's very, very true for what Cumulus is doing, for what we are trying to do. And it's very important to impress on people, that just digitizing something by itself doesn't have a lot of value. You have to think about the process, the workflow.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I really like that. If you can give one piece of advice to somebody just starting off in their career, what would it be?
So I'm biased. I think technology is very important, and if you have a chance, it doesn't have to be academic, but if you have a chance to expose yourself to understanding the foundational parts of an emerging technology that has a long-term potential, right? And there's a few of them around. I think that will give you throughout your career an added benefit. That's at least what has worked for me. I think, and then just really be clear what gets you excited. I think don't work on things where someone tells you this is a trend, or this is we give you a nice salary. I think you should really go for where you feel you can be your best self, and I think that's also worked well for me in the past. So.
Yeah, it's great advice. Last question. If you could have dinner with any one famous person, living or dead, who would it be?
Any one famous person, living or dead? Wow. So maybe Leonardo da Vinci would be an interesting character, I think.
Yeah.
The artist, the engineer, and just the person. So
Yeah. Amazing story he has. Everything that I've read and listened to on Da Vinci had a very interesting life. That's for sure. Lot to learn from him. Yeah,
I
love it.
assume I never met him, obviously.
Well,
so-
yeah, no
but-
kidding,
but-
right? No, but his story is a hell of a one, honestly. Being born out of wedlock, a bastard child that isn't claimed by his father, and had a very troubled youth, and just still went on to do some amazing things. Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely. So, Johannes, thank you very much for joining us here today. Love the conversation.
Yeah, this is fun. Thanks, Wes.
I hope to do this
Pleasure.
again sometime. So, thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Thanks.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of the Work Done Right podcast. Please help us out by subscribing and leaving us a review. And as always, Our show notes are linked in this episode's description. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.